consent for all kinds of things.
I have it on the presentation. Yeah.
And for the SF, do you know what was the San Francisco Dominant Submissive?
I do know about it, yeah.
Yeah. We're going to give our dress rehearsal.
I will.
We're going to give our dress rehearsal.
Nice to meet you. How are you, ma'am?
Hello, how are you?
Two people. Come on. Oops.
First thing that comes to my mind is that move us. And certain music and the soundscape just makes it balance. Some years have music of the night.
That's general. You don't tell me.
Whoa. Well, some people got money. I got a touch.
I have an old card.
Oh, no. But it's our new every day
I see him all the time. I don't. So I'm going to say hi.
Well, I may be
Lucky.
I get the better
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. I can't stand it.
That's one of the reasons I just don't check it. But then when they tell what was on, I had to check it out. It's good to be there.
The old way doesn't work very well.
Good.
Oh, really?
Well, you know, now news.
Well, then there's the one. No. Are you sitting in the seat of the square? Or the seat of the pond? In case I forget my
I'm sorry. What offer is this?
You know, as I said in my email to you, you haven't read. I think it's really exciting and it's really risky, and that's what it is. But it's okay. You know, it's supposed to I think that one of the things that I suggested is that the challenge may be in your setup of the speech and then your presentation. How do you distill your thoughts into a sentence and tell them what you're going to tell them so they're open, but you're taking a separate space? I think it's like that. I think it's risky, and I think it's really exciting, and I think it's Well, I want it to be our experience. I thought of a movie. I don't know the words. You know the
We said that.
Yep.
I'm going to see.
Hey, sweetheart. there.
So do you.
Oh.
I'm supposed to be babysitting the critter.
Okay.
I'm not supposed to let anybody hit it.
But yeah, you know you're there.
Staying on the home front mostly. Yeah, boy, stop me coming over here tonight.
Oh. My walker's fine.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Well, we're not always
It's too late now for that. I'll have to give it to the Lions.
I am good. I have to. Got a key for me? Oh,
Much better, actually. How are you doing?
Very good.
Everybody, could you please grab a seat? We're about to get started.
Well, hello and welcome to Redmond's discussion group. I'm going to be reading along. I don't know why, but you can just read it right up here. Okay, so you're in Redmond's discussion group, and the timeline tonight is a little bit different because of the format of the show. We're doing our regular program from 7:30 to 9, and then there's a toast. And then we all get to clean up. And just so you know, the front doors are locked, so don't be running in and out. And I guess they told you there's no intermission or anything tonight. And okay, please, let's all turn off our cell phones. The bathrooms are near the elevators. We have Facebook page, SFLDG.org, and we have videos available. I'm trying to rush through this too. Thank you to our videographers and alumni, David, John, and Paul. And of course, thank you to the volunteers. We were going to have you all stand up, but you're in the dark, so no one's going to see you. So, there we are. Okay.
I'll go ahead and read off names. A humongous thank you to our volunteers who help out every single month. This month, I would like to recognize, and if you could please stand when I read your name off, Eric Burkett, Stubby, Lex, Sean, Chris Flaw, Colin, Drew, Baca, Ganymede, Daniel, John, Lyle, Lenny, and Daddy Robert. Thank you very much, all of you, for helping out. If you would like to volunteer for future events, or if you'd like to be on the volunteer list for any of our later events, please see me at any time after the program. Or you can go ahead and write an email to volunteer@sfldg.org, and we will get to it. I'll also be posting every month reminders about volunteers on our Facebook group. So if you are following the Facebook group, please be sure to do that. Thank you, by the way, I'm Pup Sky. Hi.
Hey.
Eric is not doing it.
Where in the world? Technology never works the way you want it to.
I don't even know if that thing is. This is kind of odd for me. Okay. Thank you to our sponsors for their support. Of course, Folsom Street Events, the Leather Alliance, and Mr. S for making all this possible. And upcoming events. January 26th, we have This City, and also there's a 15 Association Play Party at the SF Citadel. January 28th, we have The Ring, Consent, Bondage, BDSM, DS with Morris and Jonathan Taylor. Got some Morris down here somewhere. And on February 6th, we have the Mr. Edge Leather Contest. That's at 9 p.m. And, RMSF Rub Down. That's a big event that's coming up. On February 7th, they're doing a breastplate workshop. On the 8th, a tour of the kink.com armory. The 9th, a swap meet. And the 10th, a big old fashion show. You can hear about that at rmsf.org Rub Down. Okay. Why can't I just have paper? I'm sorry.
So it's gadget queen.
I like toys, guys.
There we go.
Sorry.
Okay. February 13th, Kinky Gay Men's Non-Monogamy and Polyamory Discussion at Mr. S. Play Space, only in San Francisco. February 16th, the NorCal Leather Sir Leather Boy Community Root Black Competition and Bluff Invasion at the Lone Star, February 20th. Handball Academy's Red Hanky Nights. And upcoming events. Oh, get more details at Race's Bar on the Facebook page. Cool. And now, please welcome to the stage Patrick Mulcahy.
Our program next month, which is the 22nd, is it? 27th. Wednesday, February 27th. We'll be back at our home with Mr. S. And it's by popular request. People have been asking me if we could do a program on electroplay, which I really wanted to do, but I wanted to find the right person to do it. Because, I think electroplay is really fun, but I especially like the remote control. Boy, go get me 2 beers to the bar, and then when he's coming back, what's problematic to me about electroplay is that you can have the clamps and the banana plugs and the sticky electrodes and crank it up and go read the newspaper while your bottom is having a totally different experience and doesn't have no correlation to what you are doing. So I finally found somebody that I think is going to do that great for us, Yossi Silverman, longtime lover. He's got the tools, he's got the way, he's got the woo, he's got it all. See you next month for Yossi. And now I would like to introduce our chairman, Eric, and who will introduce our program.
Hi, everybody. So in addition to Patrick saying, I think it's time for you to do this, pushing me really hard down the cliff, my technology broke, which was my crutch. And yeah, I was really intimidated when he said, I want you to actually start to do a little bit of the program moderation. And then he said, but I want you to do it with Larry and Race, and that made me really happy and really comfortable because these are two of the most amazing men that I know in our community. Two guys that are some of the first guys that I actually met in the community, and along with Patrick, I'm so grateful to be here with them as my mentors. So this is actually going to be a really nice conversation for me. So I'm just going to bring them up. Larry Shockey, please come up. Leather Lead by Wicked Planning Chair, Advisory Council for Leather Leadership Conference, Leather Alley, Spring Fling, Hellhole, Handball Academy, Fist Fest, the Sacred Art of Fisting. He's actually a legend. A legend in our community, and yeah, an amazing man to have with us tonight. Bannon. After learning the ropes, founder of Kink Positive Journalist Publishing, an author, educator, radio host. I'm on the board of the Community Academic Consortium for Research on Alternative Sexualities. Did I get that right? Hey, Kara. Board for NCSF and other Hall of Fame. And of course, Race is Bar, which I think is one of the most amazing resources we've got in the community these days. Which I think I'm right. One of the most amazing resources that we've got right now in terms of bringing people together on Facebook, which is it's become such a powerful tool for us as gay men, kinky men getting together. So thank you for having that. So grab a seat.
There's still a hierarchy. It's just harder for me to stand all the way up. He was planned this way.
You want to start with?
I've got a couple of questions for you guys to kind of kick off, but yeah, go. Yeah. So Race, you were one of the first people that I was introduced to when I came to the community. You must know this man. And it's funny because as soon as I met you, one of the first things you also said was, I avoid joining organizations. And yet you're one of the first people I think everybody thinks of when they want to start something, they want to fix something, they want to get advice, they want to look for mentoring. Can you say some more about what that means to be out there but not joining?
I was very much a joiner once upon a time. I'm a member of Avatar. I started NLA Los Angeles. I was a member of NLA International Board. I am still a member of the Chicago Hellfire Club. It's the only one that I still am a member of. I think the reason that I pulled back from clubs was that a lot of the work that I wanted to do crossed the whole community. And sometimes I felt like it appeared that I had allegiances to a club or a specific organization. And for whatever reason, I'm also, the guys of my age remember the goddamn independence. I kind of have that mentality. I'm not a good joiner in some ways, oddly enough. So I decided that it would make more sense for me to not join the clubs and not join too many organizations because I wanted to do sort of the bigger umbrella things that kind of covered all of it. And that was really my main reason.
How did you start out as a Kinkster? What was your path like?
Oh, how did I start out as a Kinkster? I was working in a bar called the Glory Hole. My partner Mike is wearing a shirt. Stand up. That is the shirt I bartended in the very first week that I worked when I was underage bartending in a bar. I was wearing that. So, I was able to bartend underage because back then they weren't checking and I always had facial hair. I looked older. And on my 19th birthday, which in Illinois at the time was the law, I said to my boss, I said, wish me happy birthday. What? How old are you? 19. And he just went white. And, so that was my path. So the Glory Hole was obviously a very sleazy bar. It was called Glory Hole. And then I was a backup bartender at, oh, that's terrible. I'm forgetting the name of the bar. I was only 19. Most famous bar in Chicago. Gold Coast, thank you. And I got introduced to leather kind of that way. So by the age of 19, I was kind of in the midst of, the Gold Coast and those men, and I took to it like a duck to water. That's how I started. I take that back. I was tying boys up when I was 8 years old. So I guess my next door neighbor used to come to my house once a week for 3 years, and he would go in my basement, I would pull his pants down, he'd go over my knee, I'd spank him, he'd go home. We did that for 3 years. I was 8 years old. So I guess I started earlier, but in an organized sense, I started much later.
So this is the two topics that we're going to talk about tonight are sort of sex parties in the age that we're in right now, and how do you work on that, and what does it look like to be, a person that people look to
It happened in Los Angeles. I was at a play party hosted by Avatar, and I had been in the scene since, like I said, I was 18, 17 really. And then I'm playing with somebody, and I had never been really in a public play party like that. I had been in a lot of sleazy places, but not like that. And all of a sudden I turned around, and all these people were watching the scene. And somebody from Avatar walked up and said, "Would you be interested in teaching that?" And I had never taught before. I had never done anything like that. And so Avatar asked me to teach, and one thing led to another, and then I was on the board, and then I started. It's a long story, but that's how I started. That was the turning point when I went from player to kind of community organizer.
So the fun question for you. Can you tell me of a sex party story that's gone wrong? Or a sex party that's gone wrong?
I'm going to tell you 2 sex parties that went wrong. Yeah. The first one, I was 21, and I was bartending at the Glory Hole, and one of my customers had a 3-story brownstone in Chicago that was empty. And he said, "You can do whatever the fuck you want with it, just, if you want to have a party." I went, "Okay." So I said, I called the DJs or the bartenders of 4 different bars, the Gold Coast, the Suit and Tie Bar, the kind of sweater twink bar, and the dance bar. And I said, "Please announce that there will be a party at," and I gave the address. I was really ignorant. I did not really know what I was doing. And 300 people showed up. And so there were 300 people having sex in this 3-story brownstone, and everyone said, "Thank you for this great party." And it was a little bit overwhelming, and we had towels, and finally realized we don't have enough towels. And so that kind of didn't go well. And then one other time, my friend Joe Gallagher and I were having a party here in San Francisco, and this was our very first party. And it was an invite party, but even so, you don't think everyone's going to show. And it was over Dory Alley, and we're in a space that was pretty tiny, and we turned around, and all of a sudden the space was just packed like sardines. And Joe and I said, "What the fuck have we done?" And so we panicked and realized at that moment, control the number of people. I should have learned the first time. Control the number of people that are going to be there. And it kind of worked itself out by just diminishing the crowd. But that kind of didn't go well. We could have planned that better.
Have you ever had a burnout? Yeah, have you ever had a burnout?
You mean, have I burned out personally? Yeah, I mean, my partners can tell you that I kind of pulled back for a few years, and I just I didn't really do a lot. I mean, behind-the-scenes stuff I would do a little bit, but I didn't do a lot of community stuff for a long time. Almost 5 years.
What brought you back?
It did bring me back. I think I was asked to teach a class, and then I was asked to judge a contest, and all of a sudden I don't know how I got back. It just happened.
Took a break.
Yeah, but I took a conscious break and pulled back and said, no organizations, no boards, no events, no nothing, no classes. I just did nothing for a few years.
Okay. Okay, we're done with breaks now. Thank you. This is a bit of a challenge, figuring out how to sort of go back and forth. So I'm a little rusty, but he'll come back. But you're here, you're staying. So I've got a couple of questions for you. And a couple of them are going to be very much the same. But how did you sort of find your path as a Kingster? What did that look like for you to begin with?
Well, the way I got started really was a couple hundred years ago. I was asked by Lucky Choi and the folks who were on the steering committee for Leatherman's discussion group. I would come and be the president of the steering committee. And I really didn't know what I was getting into at the time. Evidently, there'd been a little bit of political fractiousness in the organization, and they needed somebody to come in who didn't have baggage. And so I stepped in. And it was from there and the things that I did with LDG that have actually formed the basis for what I'm going to talk about a little later on tonight, about leadership roles and finding your path in the community. But I found out through Leatherman Leatherman's discussion group really how to work with an organization and get the organization to coalesce and to kind of bring it along and identify goals and a route to get to those goals. So that's really the way it started.
And did that lead to another point where you went, oh, it's not just LDG that I'm now caretaker of, there's a whole bunch of other things that are now upon me, and how did that change your life?
Yeah, there was one Sunday afternoon after Pride at the Leather Alliance demonstration area, which I was emceeing. At the same time, I was the president of the steering committee for Leatherman's discussion group and the chair for Leather Levi Weekend. So there were all three events going on at the same time, in the same place, and I got a call about a week or so before Pride asking if I'd consider being in the running for the Leather Grand Marshal. And I had to tell them no because I couldn't go to the parade that year. So that was really a moment when I said, you know, I think one or maybe two of these things have to go. And I've always been a very strong believer that when you get into a leadership role with an organization, you really should only stay there for about 2 years. So 2 to 3 years. So one of the first things you have to do, in my opinion, once you get in, is you start to groom your successor. And so by the time I got to 3 years, I was on my way to have out of LDG. I'd already done 2 years, I think, at that point as chair of LLW. And, you know, being the masochist that I am, shortly after that started organizing hellhole parties and visiting weekends off into the Russian River and stuff like that. So I'm still learning how to slow down.
Well, doing all of those different things, I mean, is there a point that you ever really wanted to get something done and you hit a wall, you were being frustrated, something was stopping you from moving all of these 1,000 things you're doing at once forward? What do you do about that?
Yeah, I don't really have a reputation for patience. As a matter of fact, I was...
You do very well at the hellhole party.
Well, yeah, but I've learned to delegate. Learning to delegate is like the greatest thing in the world. It's like, you mean, I'll do that? And we have a great crew. But for a long time, I was looking for a particular old Chinese saying that gets tattooed to remind myself about patience, because, you know, my own personal saying about patience is it's great unless you're in a hurry. And my favorite prayer is, God, give me patience and give it to me now. So I was looking for something, you know, in Chinese characters, Chinese script, to go on my arm to kind of remind me about patience. And it took me about 2 years to find the right saying. And in the meantime, I got fed up with it, put something else there, and then I found the right saying. So when you, to get back to your question, when I run into walls all the time, and I'm actually sort of in a very frustrating point right now because I'm in a place where I'm starting to do, it feels like a whole bunch of new stuff that I don't know about how to do. And sometimes, you know, you get up to the people that are supposed to be helping you, and they're out there, you know, in good faith helping, but not really fast enough. And, you know, it's getting your ducks lined up and then keeping them lined up, and it's kind of like herding cats. So I a lot of times, actually, I pick up the phone, and I will start calling around people and say, I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't figure this out. I've hit a wall. Or sometimes it's as simple as saying, you know, dude, you need to go out in the backyard with a shot of whiskey and a nice cigar and just chill for a little while. You know, force yourself into that 45 minutes of introspection, clear your head, and come back and see if there's not a way around the wall. And that's really the way that I have to do it. And the other thing is that my partner and I have a shower summit meeting every morning. last 6 years, we've taken our morning showers together. And that's, honest to God, where we talk through the problems that we're having, the organizational stuff. I get in the shower and I go, you know, goddammit, I've got this thing going with FistFest, and I just don't know what to do about this. And we talk through it. And the same thing, if he's going through something, we talk through it through that little 20-minute shower that we have. And it's a great ritual. You just have to remember not to drop the soap. Especially in my house.
Take you off track a little bit. So my fun question for you is going to be the same one I have for Ray. Do you have any good sex party stories?
What you got to remember is sex parties is like theater. Something always happens that's screwed up, but as long as you're doing your job right, nobody knows. You know, you just put on a big smile, you breathe in, breathe out, and you go on. I mean, we've had things like our clothes check guy hasn't shown up. At our last party, we ran out of lube. I actually went out and bought some before, and somebody, a clothes check guy comes up to me and says, I just sold the last lube. And it's 9 o'clock. So I grabbed my boy, and we went down to the Safeway at 16th and Potrero and cleaned the shelves of this one. We took every small can they had and all that maybe one thing at the bars. We got up there to the checkout stand, and there was this gay couple in front of us. No, they wouldn't look at us in the eye. That was mine.
So I think there's a program to commence, but I'm curious. Maybe we have like the one question that you've always wanted to ask Larry or Grace. Anything. They're on stage, splayed open, like frogs. Why? Yes. Spike.
Could you talk about how, since you have a lot of experience in leadership roles in leather and the nature of leading organizations and coordinating has been blown up by social media. You no longer need a hierarchy to organize something on Facebook that's very effective. Can you talk about how that changes the nature of leading leather organizations and how we adapt to that? You've been successful in getting leather and Facebook to kind of work together, Ray, through your Facebook page, but for larger legacy organizations, how do you make that work?
That's a good question. And you work in social media a lot too, with a lot of the things you do, and certainly promotion. The one thing technology has done generally is allowed fewer people to do more. So, whereas once you needed a big team of people to produce a lot of things, to communicate, to publish, to organize, as my Facebook group is, that was just an idea one afternoon, and let's create a group. I mean, literally, it was just an idea after talking with somebody that, oh, we should do this. Whereas to organize anything even remotely of that size would require a big group of people once upon a time. Same thing with communications. Technology allows you to communicate in a way now that's astounding. I mean, if you have a hashtag on your Twitter account at a big event, you could have everybody talking to each other pretty quickly in a matter of seconds. Conferences, events, things like that, much easier to produce because of technology. Groups, it's far easier to organize. There's one group back east, and I'm trying to remember their name. It's a club, and they're actually building their own app. Yeah, so they'll have their own phone app, so everybody has a complete directory of every club member, a list of everything on the calendar, a way to communicate with everybody instantly, and GPS, so they know where everybody is. How's that? Yeah, it's a micro grinder. Whoever said that, that's exactly what it is. So the one thing is that I'm really big on technology not getting in the way of human interaction, and I'm vehement about that. That's why I always say leverage technology to get people face to face. It's not about the technology. It's a tool. That's all it's supposed to be. And I think the pendulum kind of swung around technology to one end where people were living within technology a lot. And I see the pendulum kind of going to the center now where people are coming a little bit more offline, a little bit face to face, and simply using it as an organizational tool. And so in summation, it's allowing individuals or small groups of people to do something that normally took a large number of people to do before. And that's the greatest power, whether it be kink or otherwise. Did that answer the question?
I think so. Does that mean that for you as a leader of an organization, it makes it easier? You just put it on Facebook and things happen? Or does that force you to be an even more effective leader so people don't get lost in the technology?
I don't think you just put it on Facebook and it happens. I know somebody who did a party, put it on Facebook, and no one showed up. Because you have to follow up. People, we're deluged. How many people get 100 Facebook event invites, like, every day? See? Or suggested events, yeah. So you can't just throw it out there and hope someone's going to show up. You've got to follow up. That's why I'm a big believer in email lists still, because at least it's a direct one-to-one, and people can respond. And so while it makes it a lot easier, it's a fallacy to think that the technology will do all the work. You really have to have that human interaction again and follow up. And that's where, if anybody, there's some shy people that try to use technology and make that the sole front of what they do. And I think sometimes that's where it falls short, because you got to have that follow-up and that human interaction, or it really won't work.
Well, and you have to realize that if you're a leader, really that's only your last name. Your first name is cheer. Because you got to be a cheerleader for your event. If you're not excited about it, if you can't generate some excitement in other people, then they're not going to come. It doesn't matter if it's the greatest event in the world. And it depends on the language you use to a large extent. You know, because if you're jazzed about it, use your jazzy words. You know, do your follow-ups. Tell people how you're progressing and what you're doing as you get there. God, we got some great new developments in this. If that's happening, you get it out there. You let people know. And that way, you not only get interest in the beginning, but you develop greater interest and some expectation. And maybe you snag some other people that maybe wouldn't have come in the beginning, but they see what's going on. You've created some buzz because you've been excited about it and you're putting that out there to the community. And that helps generate the interest too. And that's what Race is saying about follow-up.
One of Larry's events is a really good example because he uses a lot of technology for, let's say, Fist Fest, one of your events. In other words, email lists and getting people out, via technology to advertise it. But I use the term, it's a kind of a corporate term, it's called to evangelize something. And that's really what he does, is he evangelizes his events. He's the big cheerleader, evangelist, if you will. Maybe that's kind of a religious term. But that's really what he's saying, is you've got to be out there and consciously do that. Otherwise, all the technology in the world falls flat.
I'm into the laying on of hands.
That's the laying in of hands.
Never mind.
So, do you want to follow up questions? Do you want to?
No, I think let's dig in.
You want to take a lead on the leadership part? While he's getting ready to do that, it's kind of a two-pronged evening. It's talking about leadership kind of generally, and then we're going to talk about what we call social sex, aka play parties and play events. And the two actually kind of dovetail in a way. So Larry's going to take the lead because he's actually done the leadership portion before, and he and I have sort of presented the social sex play party twice before at other events. And then we're going to kind of use, once the leadership portion is over, the play party portion is really going to demonstrate a lot of how the leadership stuff works. Did I say that okay?
I wasn't listening.
Oh. You can tell we presented before together.
And actually, the leadership part is what brought me into producing and planning play parties. So the two really do dovetail together. Anytime that you are getting ready to start out on this adventure, you can't help, whether you're in a part of a group or launching out on your own, you can't help but feel afraid. That's human nature. And you don't know where to turn, typically. You know, and I tell the story about one of the MLW campers who got there one year after dark, and he set his tent up in the dark, went to bed that night. In the middle of the night, he gets up and has to pee. So he takes a couple of steps away from the tent, not knowing exactly where he is because the fog has come in, and he starts to fall down on the side of a hill. Well, he can't see where he's at, so he starts grabbing around, and he grabs onto a sapling that's growing out of the side of the hill. And he looks up, he can't see the top. He looks down, can't see the bottom, doesn't know where he is. And he hollers out, "Hello up there. Can anybody help me?" Silence. He looks down, he can't see the bottom. He looks up, he can't see the top, and he hollers out again, "Hello up there. Can anybody help me?" A little voice comes back, "Have faith and let go." Well, he looks down, he can't see the bottom. He looks up, he can't see the top. He hollers out again, "Hello up there. Can anybody help me?" And the voice comes back, "Have faith and let go." He's frantic. So one last time, he hollers out, "Hello up there. Is there anybody else up there?" That's kind of what it's like starting out on your own. So why you? Why are you the person that should be doing this? Those are things that you have to think about. Are you the guy? Why is it you? Why is it your time? One of the things that gets in a lot of people's way and a lot of organizations' way is ego. You have to deal with the issue of ego. And I've come to understand that ego is not a bad thing necessarily, unless it gets in the way. Ego is what makes us want to do a good job. So come to understand ego, and don't be afraid to have one. Why should we do it now? You have to kind of answer that question for yourself. In my own circumstance, when we started doing the hellhole parties back in 2008, I'd been on the handball list for a long time, and I see people from all over the country, all over Canada. Everybody had these vibrant fisting scenes in their communities. San Francisco had nothing. You know, the sling had gone away. There was no public fisting venue in the city. And I thought, this sucks. You know, here we're in San Francisco. We got fisters coming out our ass, so to speak. But there's no place to go out in public and play. So I developed spring fling up at the Russian River. And I said, we got to have a place. And nobody wants to have a fisting party because everybody knows that we're all pigs and we leave the place in a mess. So we put it out. I put it out to the world. I started talking to my friends. I started talking to people I didn't know so well. I went to groups. I finally put it out to my email list. I'm looking for a venue. And somebody who's not gay, who's not a fister, said to me one day, "Why don't you check out the Center for Sex and Culture? I think they'd have you." And they welcomed us with open arms. So you just have to throw it out to the universe. I have people all the time say, "Why don't you bring a fisting party to my city?" Why don't you go out and do it yourself, you lazy asshole? But that's what this is about. That's what this is about. So if you're going to...
I'm sorry, I have a question about that. Sorry. That's scary for a lot of people.
Of course.
What do you do to just say, you know, I'm going to put it out there, and I don't care what people are going to say, and I welcome your feedback, but I'm going to do it. But like, where do you get the balls to do that? That's a huge thing that you did.
Well, you know, that's... It was a part about finding, knowing your bliss and following your heart. You know, I enjoy fisting. I wanted a place to do it. San Francisco needed a fisting community. I believe that if you build it, they will come, which is true. Our first fisting party, which was in September of 2008, it was on the Saturday before Leather Week. We had this whole thing set up in a very small room with 7 slings. The closed check was in the same room as the play party. The chill space was in the same room as the party. And we had everything all set up, and we went, what if no one comes? We had 75 guys, the very first party, in a tiny room, not as big as this, as big as from here over there, with 7 slaves. And we consistently run about 50 to 60 people at our parties. But you just have to be convinced, you know, as an evangelist, that what you're doing is right. And that there's a need, and that it can be done, and you just go about doing it.
One thing I'd like to say is there's an assumption that when you want to do something, you have to do it big. And you talk about how do you get started. A play party of 6 people is still a play party. A social event of 10 people at Leathermen at dinner or Leatherwomen or whoever is still an event. It doesn't have to be an opera. You know, it doesn't. And I think that people forget that. And I want to encourage people, it sort of plays into the play party part, but that you can start small. You can have a small play party, a small social event, whatever. That's still leadership. In fact, that's really the kind of leadership we need. It doesn't have to be big. So I think people who are just starting, who say it's scary, could easily start small. Invite 6 of your friends to play. And it is a play party. And see where it goes from there. Maybe you want to make it bigger, maybe you don't. Same thing with a social event. Same thing with an educational event, whatever it might be.
To some extent, I think the smallness and the not being operatic is required these days, particularly in a place like San Francisco, where it's so expensive to put something together for more than a handful of people at a time. There's no, we don't have a big clubhouse. We don't have, it's hard to get at a restaurant that even takes reservations these days, let alone one for 20 or 30 people, and then hope that they all show up.
When I lived in New York, I went home with a guy, and he said, I have a dungeon. And anyone who's lived in New York knows about the spaces, and he went home, and he's in a studio apartment. I went, what? And he had a Pullman dungeon. You know what those are? Pullman kitchen? The sling came down. It was all built into the wall. He had a Pullman dungeon. That was his dungeon. Speaking of small, play parties can be in hotel rooms or living rooms or bedrooms. Social events can be around your dinner table. Educational events can be in your living room. In fact, some of the best ones are. So if you want to start small. I think that gets people past a lot of their fears.
Right, and then you've got to figure out, who is your community? Who is it that you're going to be speaking to? And what are their needs? And once you start to do that, and you kind of start to do an analysis of where you're trying to go, and you get that down, then it becomes much easier to talk to people about what you want to do. Then you also have to figure out, how do you plan? How do you think? What's your perspective? I happen to be somebody who paints with a very broad brush and not terribly detail-oriented. So when I'm going to work with somebody, I want to find somebody who's pretty detail-oriented to work with. So they can fill in all my little holidays in my big brush stroke. They can help keep, I'll keep the ship on course, but you've got to remember to stock the galley, that kind of thing. So figure that out when you're doing it. And then you've got several different alternatives to work with. Do you start within the framework of an existing community and try to build something from within that? Or do you strike out on your own? I firmly believe that if a group is not fulfilling your needs, you have no obligation to try and fix it. If the group is, a sinking ship, you are certainly entitled to man the life raft and go build a new ship. If you love your group, but there's not something in it that fills your niche, then create something that does fill that niche, and you can make it something that's ancillary to the group you're with. But you've got to figure out what your comfort level is, and then work in it. Now, I'll give you an example. Several years ago, LDG started Fetish Fair. And when I was on the board, I took that idea to the board because I thought we needed to do broader community outreach and expose people to a whole bunch of really cutting-edge stuff within the framework of a very short amount of time. And everybody was like, oh my God, no. We've never done that. We don't know how to do that. This will never work. Nobody will come. And I said, trust me. Let me do this. And the first thing I did was I established an advisory board. And I filled that advisory board with some very well-known men in the community that I didn't know very well. But I had an instrument, and that was being the president of the steering committee. I called Race. He said yes. I called Peter Fisk. He said yes. I called Mark Johnson. He said yes. I called Michael Sheetley. And he said yes. And there was somebody else on the committee that I'm overlooking, Richard Sprott. And they all said yes. And these were not men I knew well. And I said, I tell you what, I'll make you a promise. We'll do this in no more than 3 dinner meetings of no longer than 2 hours each. The rest we'll do by email. We did it in 2-hour dinner meetings, and the rest by email. Don't be afraid to go out and ask people for help who are leaders in the community. Because people say yes, a whole lot more than you would think. Surround yourself with people who are smarter and more experienced than you are. Look, you're not so dumb. You had the idea. Nobody else had the idea. These guys actually evidently thought it was a good idea, or they wouldn't be sitting there going, hey, because it's not because they said, this guy's an idiot. We're going to watch him fail. No, because they're all in it too, and they want to make sure that it works. So don't be afraid to throw out the net to the community and say, hello, can anyone help me? Because the answer to that question is yes. Have faith and let go, because we will catch you. We'll lift you up, and we'll help you do what you want to do. Just step up and try.
One thing I'll add to that is that, yes, reach out to people that are perceived as leaders, whatever that is, and we all have our own definition of what a leader is. But at the same time, don't hesitate to reach out to the person who is completely new, who has never participated in an event before, who just is passionate about it or has an interest in it. Because we did this once with someone, an event I was working on, and this guy, this kind of neat little guy, and goes, I would really like to help. The computer genius from heaven. Website, technology, it was astounding. And he just sat there and stuff, and he ran the whole technology event side single-handedly. But you would never have called this man a leader. He's not somebody who's ever going to stand up in front and be the mouthpiece or the evangelist for an event necessarily. But boy, was he integral to that event. So don't be afraid to ask anyone in the community. You'd be surprised what they'll do. Just everybody has a talent.
Yeah, and I'll just kind of end this with a couple of points. There's some other things we could talk about, but I'll talk about some of that with you individually if you'd like. It has to do with raising money and finding sponsors and all that kind of thing. It's things that I learned over time that were kind of like, duh. So I'll be happy to talk to anybody who wants to know about that later. But I think some of the most important stuff, this also goes to the play party stuff that we're going to talk about. Keep your commitments. If you say you'll be somewhere at a certain time, do it. If you say you're going to do something, do it. If you don't, you're going to become known as a flake, and nobody's going to want to work with you. Be open in your communications with people. Always be willing to listen. Solicit what people have to say. Give positive feedback, and make sure that everybody is on the same page. Always, always, always be honest. And I don't mean, God, honey, when are you going to comb your hair? I mean, always be honest. If you say, again, it goes back, if you say you're going to do something, do it. Be honest in your dealings with people. Don't tell somebody one thing and do something else. Never, ever, ever touch beneficiary money. Ever, ever, ever touch beneficiary money. If you're going to have a beneficiary at your event, they are responsible for having volunteers there. They handle the money. They sell the raffle tickets. They handle the raffle tickets. They do the draw. They hand out the prizes. And if they hand you the money with the bucket in it, you throw up your hands and you back away just as fast as you can. Because nothing will sink you faster than if you get accused of sticking your hand in that money. So never, ever do that. Maintain your integrity. If you're running an event, the event is your responsibility. Never, ever, ever try to cop out and say, oh, somebody else was responsible for that. You know, because you're responsible if you're in charge. If somebody gets crossways with you or with the event, you accept the criticism, you apologize, you make it better, even if it wasn't your fault. You know, you don't get anywhere by trying to wiggle your way out of a situation. You got to face it right straight up front and deal with it. Yeah, and the last one was surround yourself by people that are smarter than you. So,
I think a good segue from the kind of leadership overview, we'll be talking more about that in the second half while we talk about play parties, is somebody in the community who asked to remain anonymous sent me a list of leadership points, sort of 9 points that they felt was important for leadership. I think it's a good list, so I'm going to read it very, very quickly because I think it's kind of, we all know about these overarching principles upon which you hang details, and I think from a leadership perspective, these are those overarching details from which you can hang a lot of details, and I think if you keep these in mind, it really helps. And they are: praise in public, criticize in private, express your appreciation frequently, listen first. If there is a problem, seek to understand why things are the way they are, search for common ground, reduce us versus them confrontations, seek solutions, every problem has an opportunity. Don't repeat criticism. I only differ with that one bit in one way, and that is that sometimes you do have to publicly make some things out there in the ether in order to get the problem solved, but that's a nitpicky thing. Avoid politics. Politics is hard to define, but we all know what it is and we see it. Invest the time needed to mentor growth. We talk about mentoring in our community, but we don't do enough of it. Never do. There's never enough of that. And the last, which kind of, we talked about follow-up before, follow up. In other words, after you've done all of that, follow up and make sure that everything's been done, everyone feels good about it, everything is sort of falling into place, whatever that might be. So those 9 points, I think, are really good kind of overarching principles around leadership, that if we keep them in mind, whether you're kinky or otherwise, I think it's really good. If you've ever taken sort of a corporate leadership class, all these points, for the most part, are in those kinds of classes where they kind of drive into you, this is what leadership is. Same thing for the kinky community. So with that, should we segue sort of into the social sex and the new millennium part?
I guess so.
Between Larry and I, we have done a lot of what we would call play parties. Sometimes play parties have a very specific theme, like fisting. Mr. Fister here. I call you the king of the fisters, by the way. I hope you know that. Some have BDSM focus. Some are very sexual focused. Some mix it up, my favorite. And I think what's really important when you're about to have a play party, remember I said earlier, 6 people is a play party? I think one of the worst things that has come out of our big public play parties is that that's what we think a play party is. It's a rented dungeon with lots of equipment and lots of people, probably an organization behind it, and those are great. Those are wonderful when they happen. We shouldn't have to wait around for those to happen. We should be able to create parties of any size, in any place that we so choose. And so I'll use one illustration of that. I was doing a play party many, many years ago, and the guy said, well, there's just a raw space. There's no equipment, there's no facilities, there's no nothing. There's a bathroom and a raw space, that's it. I said, perfect. That's the kind of play party we're going to be. We're going to tell them, you've got nothing. I just want your body and your equipment, and you'd be surprised what happened. The most creative scenes happened in this raw space with no equipment because people didn't have a cross to tie to, they didn't have a bench to bind to, they didn't have a lot of the normal equipment. They just used raw space, and everybody came out of that party saying, that's one of the best parties I've ever been to. I had to actually get creative. I had to actually say, it's about me and my partner. It's not about the equipment. So think outside the box, overused phrase, I know. But when it comes to play parties or any kind of social sex, don't use the template of the traditional sex parties that you're used to in the play parties as the only way to do this. These can happen in your bedroom, living room, garage, rented hotel room, a lot of places.
Well, and let me build on that, because a friend of mine in Honolulu, for example, and I were having an email exchange, and he was wanting to do some sort, and he said, well, there's just no place to play in Honolulu. You know, it's like everybody's homes are too small, and the hotels aren't welcoming, and all this kind of stuff. And I said, you know what? This is not impossible. Again, think outside the box. I said, do you know a gay realtor? Because your realtor is going to know of empty spaces.